Hi everyone, I'm Sandy and welcome back to my channel. Today I have my June reading wrap up for you. If you've been following my channel, you may know I've been in a bit of a slump, a reading slump lately, and June's reading really did reflect that quite a bit. Way down on the number of books that I would normally read, and it wasn't even just reading, it was watching videos or commenting on videos. It was everything to do with any kind of mental activity. I just didn't want to do it in the month of June, and I do feel like I'm out of it now. But yeah, what a weird and rough kind of reading month for me. I haven't experienced anything quite like that since starting my channel. So yeah, very strange. But I do have some books to talk about and some books I haven't talked about yet. But what I had started doing last month, I'm going to continue it this month, is to give an overall update on my 1001 book countdown, which I wrote over here, of course. So I started the month at 876 books left on the 1001 book countdown, and 37 left on my 52 list for the 2023. So if you're not familiar with the 1001 book countdown, I'm reading books off of the 1001 books you must read before you die list and just working my way through that project. 876 is what I have left for the whole list, and 37, I pre-select 52 books at the beginning of the year and then just work towards getting that to zero. Helps me to have a smaller number, so I feel like I'm making some progress. I have not made it to zero a single year. I've been documenting this out on BookTube. So, but that's where I started the month at. Where I finished the month was 871, so I knocked 5 off of the main number, and the bottom number I went to 33, so I knocked 4. I didn't fall further behind in June, which is great news, and I really have to thank all of my buddy readers and group reads that I did, because that is really the only reason why I was able to read that. And keep in mind, one of those books of the 5 was basically the same book twice, because it was Labyrinths and Ficciones by Borges, which 90% of the stories were the same. In Ficciones, they were all in Labyrinth. So it was a little bit of a cheat, but I'm going to take it because I don't feel like I've fallen behind. The books that I did finish reading were Americana, Avoid, Go Tell It on the Mountain, Ficciones, and Labyrinths. And so those are the 5 books that I finished for the 1001 book countdown. I have videos out for all of those already, so you can go and watch those. In regards to my other reads, my projects, oh boy, so this is my first big fail of the month. My Discover New Authors project, or authors I want to read this year. I had selected The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. I did not read this. I mean, I got about 10 pages in, and my brain was not allowing me to concentrate. I was losing part of the story, and I just said, you know what, I'm just going to put it aside, and I will try and pick it up later in the year. I do still really want to read this. It is a chunky book. I want to read it for the Big Book Summer Challenge, reading challenge, but it just didn't happen in June. Understandable, considering I was pretty slumpy. So for my subscriber favorite project, I had this book, The Sentence by Louise Erdrich, and this was the recommendation by Melinda over at Web of Stories. So thank you so much, Melinda, for giving me this wonderful recommendation. I read this with Kelly over at Books I'm Not Reading. She already has a video out talking about this particular book. It has been now about a month since I finished reading it, so some of the details are escaping me a little bit. My overall feelings about this book is that this book was a bit too chaotic for me, and I had trouble following all of the storylines. There were components of it that I loved. I loved the bookstore. I wanted to be in the bookstore the whole time. The weirdness of some of the things that happen in the story, and then the author kind of putting herself in the story. It also has a component of COVID and the pandemic, and for me, I don't want to read about that right now. It still feels too close for me, and it just wasn't something I wanted to spend a lot of time in. I do like Louise Erdrich's writing, and this may be one that I need to reread at some particular point. Very thankful that Melinda recommended it. Very thankful that Kelly read it with me. I just wish I loved it, and I didn't love it, which is too bad. But The Sentence, that was my subscriber favorite project. For my Health and Body project, I'm not doing a dedicated video for this book. I haven't done one for a couple of months. I ended up reading Hungry Heart by Jennifer Weiner, Adventures in Love, or Adventures in Life, Love and Writing. This is her memoir. If you're not familiar with Jennifer Weiner, she is a contemporary author who frequently will feature plus size or larger characters, larger women who are phenomenal characters. They are a big focus in her writing. And this really goes into kind of how she got to where she was. Very, very smart individual. Absolutely. There's one line in this book that I connected with in a very big way. And it was, "You are never as fat as you think you are." I'm like, oh, that is so true. It is so true, because when I think back to pictures or times when I thought I was very heavy, I wish I weighed that now. So yeah, you never are as fat as you think you are. And that line has stuck with me ever since reading this book. I did read this with Amanda from the Reading and Writing Life. So thank you so much, because she helped me again read something, as well as all my buddy readers, and Kelly included in that, because I needed to read. I didn't want to let my buddy readers down. So, but I did like this one quite a bit. I've only read one of her novels. I do want to read In Her Shoes, which has an adaptation, which I have seen. I would love to read a little bit more of her stuff, maybe at some point. But this was my health and body pick for the month of June. And the last book, this is very unusual for me. If you've watched my channel, I normally have a huge stack of things and I have to kind of pick and choose. The last book that I have for you is this one, Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmis. This book I did as a buddy read with Mitzi from Mitzi Reads and Writes. Now, Mitzi unfortunately DNF'd it. Probably, I think, around a third of the book through, maybe not even quite that far. There was a lot in the language in here that just didn't work for her. I did finish the whole book. I do have a comment to talk about before I talk about the book, though. It's this cover. So the cover makes me think romancy, rom-com-y, funny. That's what I get from this particular cover. And this book is not that. This book has a very dark beginning, has a really difficult scene in the beginning, and it is all following this chemist. It is set in the 1950s, and all the trials and tribulations that she goes through trying to be a woman in a field that is male dominated. And it is incredibly difficult for her, and she goes through a lot, and especially in that very, very beginning. There is a love component to this book, and it is very sweet. I love the interactions between the couple that's in this book. I thought that was truly brilliant. There were some components of this book I just made me laugh, absolutely made me laugh. It just wasn't quite what I expected, and it largely goes back to, I think, this cover. I was expecting something else, and it was a lot darker in places than I really anticipated it was going to be. Would I recommend it? I think so, but just go check trigger warnings before you read it, because I was not expecting the scene in the beginning, and it kind of threw me for a bit of a loop. And from that point on, I was reading it with a bit of trepidation, trying to make sure, okay, am I going to hit something else that's a difficult scene coming up? I loved all the pieces about rowing in this, about being out on the water. I thought she, the main character, is a pretty incredible individual, and I wanted nothing but the best for her. The ending was a bit convenient, I guess, is what I would say. Is that convenient the right word? I'm not sure if the convenience is the right word, but it was kind of inevitable, I guess, the ending of it. But I did like it. I didn't DNF it, and I did read it fairly quickly. I read it in like the first few days of the month, which was one of my more successful and shorter reads of the month. But Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmis. That is the last book that I actually ended up reading in the month of June. Overall, I still read. I just felt like with having the buddy reads and everything in there, that that's what got me reading, but it also felt like work. It felt hard. Just the ability to pick up anything. And I think it goes back to the BookTube Prize and reading 2 nonfiction sections in a row, and having really big chunky books that I wasn't super interested in the second round just put me in that slump. And it did feel, even with reading what I read towards the end of the month, I felt just this pressure to get it read, but I wasn't necessarily saying, wow, I'm enjoying everything I'm reading, which is very, very unlike me. Normally, I have a book in my hand all the time, and I just love the process of reading, love books, loving all different kinds of books. In June, I just was like, no, I don't want to do that. I'm happy to report in July, it has flipped around already. I am loving the books that I've been reading. I've been reading a ton, and I'm super excited because I've already finished a couple of books I started in June and then finished in July. And then I've read a couple of other books. So already this month, I'm just so incredibly happy with where I'm at. I've had 5-star read already this month. I have some other books that are just pulling me in, and I'm back to kind of my normal self, which feels great, which feels really great. But that is my June reading wrap up. How'd you do in June? I've heard there's like a summer slump. What was your favorite read in June? I'd love to hear about that. Did you experience a summer slump, a reading slump at all, a slowdown? Am I the only one? I've heard a lot of people commiserate with me and say they felt the same. Just curious. Would love to hear from you in the comments down below. Even if you just leave me an emoji, you can leave me a little book emoji. I'd love to see that as well. And I hope your reading is going well. And as always, like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, everyone, thanks. Bye.